actions speak louder than words, so let me demonstrate my love for you in bed.
How about no, you crazy Dutch?
Hello friends, trace amounts of science. We're back in it today with some r/NeckbeardStories. Well, it's a Neckbeard fanfic from one of our patrons. It was fairly competently written in the first part, so we'll take a meander through the second part and see how it goes. And of course, thank you for being a patron. I should also mention that he's written a book, and I shall pin a comment if you're interested in that. With that, we'll proceed into the story. Salvation Neckbeards 2, Blackfire's Attempted Revenge. This is a Neckbeard fan fiction. Yes, it certainly is. Welcome back to the second installment of Salvation Neckbeards once again, my fellow Neckbeard enthusiasts. And this is a fan fiction that I'm mildly using to link to my own writing. Well, writer's block isn't my excuse today. I just fancied making up some crap and letting it get ogled by you folks. So, on to a poetic intro, because I can, and I'm the one writing this shit. Yeah, sure, man. It's your show, you know, do whatever you want to do. Make it good. Don't kill the retention of this video. No, it's fine. It's probably going to be fine. So, today we tell a tale so mad where our Neckbeard was ever so bad. Where we last left off, he needed ice for his balls. Now it is time to see how the chips fall. So first, let us meet the maiden of this tale. She's a beauty, whose heart is not for sale. Lady Juliana is her name, and being a nerd is her game. Next is a face that will make you faint. A man by the name of Michael Saint. He's a cool dude, that's for sure. I didn't even know. If our beard is virus, he's the cure. He puts champagne into a cantaloupe. He rides down the hill in the shopping cart. That's how you know he's a cool dude. Next is our Neckbeard star, a fat man with a brand new car. He goes by the name of Blackfire, and he will demand someone calls him sire. New to this tale's a lady called Nyx, a cousin of the beard and turning tricks. A strange, twisted soul, a legbeard who is yet to pay the toll. Next is her broken son, the man we call Ultimation. What? It's a slant rhyme in my accent, I think.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't hurt me. Sorry.
A giant meathead that might want to fix, but it'll never happen when his mother is Nyx. Finally, a man who is on both sides, a man whose motives he always hides. Interron, a younger mind. He's more complicated, you'll find. Now you have a cast list in full. You're ready for a story, no bull. A tale of fat nerds rage. Time for ReddX to turn the page. Okay, enough of the rhyming crap now. It takes forever thinking that up, you know?
I'm done. Cut the show. I'm done. Take me off.
I mean, we don't have to do the rhyming. I'll be really honest with you. Like, even cast lists are sort of passé at this point, aren't they? Not to be a dick or something, but, you know. I just think the rhyming is hurting more than helping with getting the point across. Anyway, after the incident at the game shop, Blackfire spent a week seething. How dare that female kick him in the family jewels? Didn't she know that he was a superior male to that meat-headed oaf? To tell this tale, though, a little backstory on the new characters. Okay, then why check in with Blackfire? Seems like a little bit of a, shift, you know? We're shifting really hard there. The way in which all of them came to be in his twisted embrace, and the first obviously being Nyx. I mean, it's family bonds, man. She was his younger cousin, who was essentially brainwashed into becoming his most loyal follower. She's so loyal to him that many in the family believed that Blackfire was the father of her son, Ultimation. I hate that. Thanks so much.
That girl was hot. She's my cousin. She is? Yes, we're all cousins.
We could write about anything in the world, and we choose Neckbeard kissing cousins. Okay. A DNA test revealed that he wasn't, and although the lad is 18 now, she still doesn't have a clue who the father is. Oh, that's too bad. If I had to take a guess, she probably doesn't know who her own father is either. She gave birth to him at 16, and she struggled for many years and allowed Blackfire to be the father figure for her son. Well, that's a disaster. Unfortunately, said father figure was a cruel and twisted sociopath. Rumor was Nix was a lady of the night who really wasn't all that careful. Yeah, obviously. For an extra $10, I'll let you take the rubber off. Not the sort of investment that pays dividends, no. She for many years tried to baby trap her clients, as Ultimation might have been the oldest of her children, but he was not the only one. She had 4 in total, all from different men. She led an unfortunate life, numbing her days with bottles of Jaeger and antidepressants. One must wonder what will become of her. Maybe we'll find out. Anyway, when Ultimation was 14, Blackfire took him in due to his behavioral issues being too much for Nix. The reality of the situation was he was a messed up kid on antipsychotics that didn't take his meds regularly. The story that unfolds is why Blackfire now lives with his mother, because he can't be trusted to live alone any longer. Blackfire took him in and quickly began using his size to dominate the poor bastard. He mentally and physically maltreated him so he could make him compliant, before steadily feeding him a diet of incel ideology, speed, and steroids. What the fuck is this story, dude? Well, making him go to the gym, which was ironic, considering the closest he got to exercise was going down the stairs normally. Yes, I walk down the stairs normally, like a normal human. The antipsychotics were slowly removed from his daily routine, and the boy was primed. Is Blackfire like a CIA agent or something like that? What exactly is the end game here? Anyway, one day Blackfire cut him off from all the drugs and sent him out of the house enraged. Blackfire secretly posted on an incel forum what he'd done, stating he couldn't wait to find out what the kid did. Not one to disappoint, Ultimation, upon first challenge, began a rampage through his school. Bro, what the fuck? I ask again, what is this story? Why any of this? Is this going to be doom and gloom Edgemac's death grind all the way? At least in the parts where it's not like hokey, stilted romance? I don't know, man. I'm liking this less and less. So yeah, Ultimation came after dozens of students and teachers who in turn called the cops. It took 6 officers to subdue him due to his relative size and muscle mass. Ultimation had to serve time until his 18th birthday before being released. Weird. Like I said, it's your show, but including the little incel LARP inside a Neckbeard fanfic, I just... it's strange. It's strange behavior is what it is. So cool, that was some backstory. Finally, Interron, a quiet kid at the game shop. He was Blackfire's victim after his mother and brother were ended in a house fire. Blackfire took advantage of a kid in grief and began twisting his mind until he was a shadow of his former self. Blackfire tried to get his father, Gabriel, into his circle too, but the father was much more emotionally mature. He saw what Blackfire was about and tried to get his son away from him. It was too late, but he hoped that through his influence he could mitigate the damage that Blackfire caused. Sometimes he could, and sometimes not so much. I don't know that these things needed to be explained explicitly. Like, now we're halfway through the story, and nothing has happened so far. You know what I mean? Like, a little help with the pacing, that would be good. But okay, it's your story. You tell it. I'm sure things are about to start happening right now. Now. Things are going to start happening now.
But I want it now!
So on with the story. It begins with Michael and Juliana out on a first date. Now, as you might remember, I don't, Michael had a very nice car. Such a nice car that most people would probably want to get a chance to drive it. Well, Blackfire and Ultimation decided they wanted it and broke into the car while it was parked down the road. Was Ultimation at the game shop the entire time, or this is like weeks after the fact? I'm severely fucking confused as to like the order of events here. Okay, cool. Ultimation engaging his criminal tendencies only a month into his probation, and then they drove the car to Ultimation's new friend's garage, the Chop Shop, and got paid for it. Even if the suspension was shot from the fact that Blackfire's extreme weight was in it, they still got paid for all of the parts. Man, this was it's a fucking rough read, I gotta be honest with you. They still got paid for all the parts still? Like, come on, like first draft type of shit, you know? You want me to get up here and hawk the book and do all the things? You gotta put your best foot forward. I don't feel like this is putting our best foot forward, man. I gotta be real honest with you. I'm trying to talk around it and spruce it up where I can, but there's only so much I can do. Anyway, what they failed to comprehend was that Michael installed a tracker on the car. So when he found his car was missing, he called the police to locate the car, and instead they found a chop shop. Maybe the comments can let me know if I'm like out of line in saying that. I feel like the sentence construction is just like pretty dumb to dumb when I like it to be a little more tweedly diddly dee, you know? Like, we can find more interesting ways to say things. I'm getting, again, first draft vibes. There's a spelling mistake in the next sentence even. With the chop shop, we're quick to disassemble the car. With the chop shop being so quick to disassemble a car, apparently nobody found the tracker in the parts until after they'd paid Blackfire and Ultimation. They tried to roll on them, but of course, no one could place them at the scene of the theft, and the CPS, Crown Prosecution Service, dropped the case with a stern warning not to steal. British justice system at work, folks. I mean, yeah, sorta, until you post something untoward on social media. It's like, oh, you get 3 years, you said a mean thing. What the fuck? Next, Blackfire plotted to stalk Juliana using Nyx, Ultimation, and Interron as his assistants. I sort of miss when there was only 3 characters we had to keep track of. When his mother caught him plotting, Blackfire, I guess, he screamed at the poor lady, "Quiet, woman! Know your place in my house!" before she grabbed a rolling pin from the drawer and began chasing him around the house, hitting him on the head with it. When she caught him hollering at him, "This is my house, you stupid fit fuck! And you're the reason I'll never have grandchildren. You're a 37-year-old man, and as far as I know, you can't even get a date with a lady of the night, let alone a real date, so just leave that poor young lady alone." It was kind of like a scene in Looney Tunes, where that big gorilla's getting chased around by the wife gorilla. I will say, though, there's still some incestuous undertones to it. I don't like it none too much. My opinion of this story is taking a really dark turn. Anyway, he didn't get the point and ended up stalking Juliana to her workplace. Juliana worked in a place that was definitely not child-friendly. She was a bar manager at a local strip club. She looked out for her bar staff and kept an eye on the girls because some customers could get a little handsy. Well, Blackfire showed up. Definitely that was a red flag, but she did kind of hope that he'd find a new girl to focus on without causing too much bother. Yeah, now he's somebody else's problem. I mean, you are the manager of that somebody else, so probably it's still your problem a little bit. Well, he didn't find somebody else, and Juliana started getting escorted home by Michael as a result. Oh, does Michael work at the club too? He just hangs out at the strip club because his girlfriend works there now? I don't know what's happening.
How dare he? How did he get a new car so soon? Did he have 2?
Nope, he was just rich. And as we all know, being rich is what gives one value as an individual. Nothing outside of that. You gotta have the dollary dues or else it doesn't count. So, what did Michael do for a living, as this will be relevant later? Well, let's have Doctor Who take us back in time and have him tell us during a conversation with Juliana on their date. Yeah, here's some TARDIS noises or something. Okay. You like that? High budget effects. Juliana says, so what exactly do you do, if you don't mind me asking? And Michael says, I don't. I'm retired from the Royal Marines, and now I run a company that teaches advanced driving to the police and military. Juliana, damn, that's pretty cool. Are you like secretly James Bond? And Michael says, please, James Bond wishes he was me. Oh my god, I love a man with an unchecked ego. She didn't say that. In the background, if they looked to their left, they'd see the Aston Martin being broken into and speeding away. Oh yeah, that's some crazy bullshit, lol. I guess it was. It's like Grand Theft Auto out here, except I'm insured out my ass. Nothing can touch me, really. Back to the present. Michael had plenty of police contacts who were more than happy to add an extra eye on the club Juliana worked at random intervals, often running off some of the more troublesome characters. Juliana one night was waiting for Michael, only to be snuck up on by Blackfire. Aw, snap! She probably just gonna turn around and blast him in the nuts again. And I think I was wrong in the first story. I was like, oh, she escalated it to physical. No, he did when he touched her, I think. I'm of the opinion that my brain is blanking out parts of the story in order to preserve its own sanity. A little too late, brain. Blackfire.
Hey, babe. How's it going?
Juliana. Don't call me that. Leave me alone. Blackfire.
Why not? You're totally going to be mine soon enough, ?
I'm not sure what that sentence is supposed to mean. Juliana, mockingly. Oh yeah, because you're the dream man. A fat old pervert who never learned how to talk to women. Blackfire.
I'm not fat. I'm big boned.
Yeah, and you will respect his authority. Juliana was just about to quit back as Michael pulled up in a brand new Dodge Charger, blue and white. Michael.
Hey, are you okay?
Yeah, I had to drive my 8th car to work today. Juliana says, I am now. And she went to get into the car, only for Blackfire to grab her shoulders with his sweaty troll hands, which then prompted her to punch him square in the nose. Blackfire winced, holding back tears. Juliana used the chance to get away from him, while he kept telling himself,
don't let her see you cry.
Juliana, stay the hell away from me, fat ass. As Michael began to drive away, Blackfire shouted back,
I'm not fat, you stupid bitch!
I do kind of like that. It's hard not to like the escalation a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't have harped on OP so hard. Maybe there was a little bit of payoff there. Anyway, Michael says, are you okay? And Juliana says, well, I punched him, didn't I? Aside from having to. Michael,
point taken. I think that we need to start talking about getting a restraining order against that freak.
Juliana, I'll speak to my manager about banning him, and hopefully that'll be the end of this crap. Michael,
it's a start. Just be safe.
Juliana, I hear you. What took you so long, by the way? Michael,
I had to stop and get petrol. There was a queue at the BP.
A queue for petrol. Oh, it's so delightfully British, isn't it? Juliana, you should have used the Tesco's. Michael,
I got a tenner to say you're going to need a drink.
Juliana, no, I need to get a shower. Get the greasy paw print off my shoulder. Michael,
yeah, you might want to burn that shirt too.
The two of them laughed as they drove off into the night. A couple hours later, whilst at home, Juliana was starting to fall asleep on the couch with Michael when there was a knock on the door. Michael let her sleep a bit and answered the door. He opened the door to the sight of a small, nerdy kid that he recognized from the game shop. Interron, hey, is Juliana in? Michael,
she's sleeping. Who are you?
I'm Interron from the game shop. My dad thinks I should give you a heads up. Blackfire's calling the police on her for punching him and kicking him.
Michael,
how do you know this?
Interron,
I was recording the punch on camera for him. I'm sorry for not warning you prior. I can't help you any further, though. Michael,
Why do you hang around that guy?
Interron, because he helped me when my mom and brother died, so I sort of owe him for it. And I do remember from the intro, they died in a house fire, so at least some things are consistent here. So that's good. +1 up, dude. You win all my internet today.
Michael says, you don't owe that guy anything for being a human being for once. You owe yourself first, kid, but thanks for the warning.
Interron began crying, saying, he's gonna brand me a traitor for all this.
Michael, let him. I gotta call the cops to head this crap off. Wait, how did you know where we were?
Interron, I've been following you around for him. Michael,
fan-goddamn-tastic.
And then Michael closed the door. That's right, get out of here, you little creep. Doesn't matter if he calls you a traitor and beats the living shit out of you. I have the information that I need now. Slam. It's not a great look, honestly. Then Michael used his contacts in the police to head off Blackfire's bullshit at the pass. Fortunately, the investigating officers knew Michael and understood the situation for what it was, a creep trying to bully her into dating him. It's apparently a common tactic of some types of creeps who would get themselves into scenarios where their targets lash out and then they draw up charges, using the threat of arrest to leverage their targets into dating them. That shit actually works. I'd say arrest me. I don't care. Arrest me! The cops on this case told him not to waste their time and asked Juliana if she wished to press criminal harassment charges. And she did! So the fat idiot got a formal police caution and was firmly advised to stay the hell away from Juliana. Next time on Salvation Neckbeards, things will get weird. It's already a little bit weird. The story's inching along, but we're gonna have to wait another month. That's how this patron thing goes. I could load them all together, but what would the fun be in that? Anyway, please, if you enjoy here in these stories, please don't forget to purchase a copy of my book, Salvation Chronicles Guardians of Earth, for my sci-fi epic for the ages. If you didn't enjoy it, then meh, I don't know what to do. I'm trying. It's not my normal type of writing style. Eat a bacon and mushroom sandwich and then retry, and maybe it'll help. Peace out, folks. Well, peace out, I suppose. It was certainly a story. I don't want to be too harsh on it because, you know, everybody needs practice at writing. There's always better things that we can do. And you're putting yourself out there, you know. I might have jabbed you here and there. A little bit of ribbing, but I hope that you can see the constructive criticism that was underlying. I don't know that I fully enjoy the story, mostly because of, like, the dark themes and also the simple way that things are said. But I'm happy to share it with my audience, and hopefully they can provide some constructive criticism as well. Or just be like, yay, it was really good, but that doesn't help anybody grow. So yes, read the constructive comments, the ones with actual advice in them. I suppose we'll continue on and add a little bit of contrast with our next story. This tale is called The Legend of Neckbeard Hollow. It is a Neckbeard fanfic written by our good friend Gant. And yeah, he's got some writing chops, apparently. I hope you'll enjoy it. Happy Halloween. Hopefully this one can cause some goosebumps. In all 50 states of the Union, not much consideration is ever made to the state of Wisconsin. Most of the world's focus is California, New York, Texas. There isn't much attention given to some small Midwestern territory designated as a flyover state. Like the quiet badger who nestles quietly in the ground, Wisconsin is a place of quiet majesty and simple wonders. Placed between the Mississippi rivers and the great watery oceans disguised as lakes, the state itself is a rather subdued part of the United States. With its land carefully manicured for agricultural production, in between fields of birch and white pines, Wisconsin itself stands as a testament to the silence that one can expect in the more overlooked parts of the United States, and the locals would not have it any other way. For many of the residents of Wisconsin, they find it hard to not be enraptured by the primordial energy infused into the landscape. Many times I would take a hike into one of the many forests in northern Wisconsin. I would find myself isolated
in the many deciduous and conifer trees that battle for residence amongst the fertile landscape. I would hear the winds blow down towards me, the leftover whispers from the November witch that the residents up north have grown to fear. I would find myself enraptured by the chirps of the black-capped chickadee and the calls of the loon, both who have long since made their homes in these lands, since time immemorial. A harmonious choir that would only be interrupted by the occasional crackle of a hunter's gun. Among this vast expanse of forest and farmland, there lies a small town that looks identical to many other small towns of Wisconsin, a town that most residents barely notice on the maps that you buy at the local gas station, a town that hides away from the main highways, requiring you to take farm roads to even venture to this remote hamlet, a town enclosed by a vast wall of Canadian hemlocks, tamaracks, and white spruces, a town that hides away from the public eye, just like it hides away its peculiar and rather haunting history, and that town is known by residents as Hampa Valley. Few know the many legends of Hampa Valley, and fewer still are even willing to tell them. That's just how Wisconsinites are, especially the rural folk. They don't seek the glitz and glamour of Hollywood life, and would rather stay secluded in their designated patch of earth. Like the white-tailed deer that they're so fond of hunting in the autumn, Wisconsin residents prefer to be left alone and to not draw attention. Let sleeping dogs lie is our unofficial motto. Go to Plainfield, ask about Ed Gein, and see how long it'll take for the residents to politely but firmly ask you to leave. But if you're willing to stop by at one of our many sports bars and find a soul whose lips are well lubricated with bush light, then maybe they'll be willing to tell you about the chief spirit of Hampa Valley, a phantom that served as commander of the many ghouls and ghosts of northern Wisconsin, a specter who seemed traveling through empty farm roads of Hampa Valley, an apparition that's often seen riding on a Harley-Davidson at full speed, no caution, and most importantly, no head. It's said by some to be the ghost of a Hell's Angel, whose life of sin and debauchery forever anchored his soul to this plane of existence. Others say it might be the spirit of a Vietnam veteran, a man who turned to drink to drown out those horrible memories. No matter the origin, all renditions I've heard agree on one important fact. On the many winding and hilly roads that will test the limits of your brake pads, the rider traveled at full speed and, well, with far too much alcohol in his system. With his mind impaired, he ran into one of the guardrails on the hill's summit. His body flew off the bike and crashed down into the forest floor below. Some will tell you that they read the stories in the newspapers, while others will tell you that they have a relative who helped to recover the body. In either case, they agree that the bike was totaled, and the man's body was somehow in an even worse state. They'll tell you that his head was attached to his body by only a few thin strands of flesh. Now the spirit roams the various back roads of Hampa Valley, riding at full speed on his Harley, a soul on a doomed search to find his missing head. There is, however, a variation to this tale that even fewer know about. Not a rewrite, but an addendum to the story that only the locals of Hampa Valley would tell on cold October nights. The story of a man who once resided in town off the beaten path. A UW-Milwaukee student who returned after gaining his bachelor's in the fine arts. A person who tried to make it big in the city of Milwaukee and was forced to return to his mother in a rusty modular home. This individual in question would have an unmistakable look to him. Long, lanky limbs attached to a pot belly and a nose so long that it very well might be able to smell the future.
I smell everything! I'm invincible!
A mouth that harkens back to Wisconsin's earliest sailors, and a beard more rugged than Mother Nature herself. Atop his head lies what almost looks like hair, if you could dig deep enough through the layers of oil and dandruff. Given all these features, it's fair to say that a rather colorful set of names could be given to such a refined gentleman. but for politeness' sake, we will call him Cranebeard for the aforementioned nose and limbs. Now, Cranebeard was not your average resident of Hampa Valley. He may have grown up in the town his entire life, but he never developed a love for the small collection of shops and houses. He couldn't get out of that neighborhood of Hicks fast enough, he thought, and his time away from home hadn't brought forth feelings of nostalgia or homesickness. In fact, he had only moved back due to the high cost of living that city life entails, plus the difficulties that he had finding employment there that could support him. That, however, didn't change his attitude regarding Hampa Valley. In fact, Milwaukee had imbued him with a more metropolitan view on life, which would inevitably put him at odds with his neighbors. Now, this isn't to say that Cranebeard became some soy boy liberal during his time in Milwaukee. Rural folk aren't known for hating liberals. Well, I mean, they do, but that's not the point. From the time America was first founded, a silent civil war has been fought between what can best be described as country folk and city slickers. The country folk view the city slickers as pompous and haughty, while the latter view the former as uneducated and stubborn. Ultimately, there's a bit of truth to both claims, and as a result, an unending rivalry exists between the two. As a result, Cranebeard was, whether he knew it or not, just another foot soldier in that ceaseless battle. Regardless of his attitude, Cranebeard needed income, and cushy office jobs were few and far between in the rural areas of northern Wisconsin. In fact, any forms of employment were scarce in Hampa Valley, so Cranebeard had to settle for late-night work as a convenience store clerk. Now, you would think that Cranebeard would consider a workstation like this beneath him, and you would be right. He absolutely loathed every second of it. Still, his mother insisted he pay rent as well as his own living expenses, so beggars can't be choosers. That didn't change his disposition on other things. His frustrations only grew with every country bumpkin and occasional tourist that found their way to his counter. Thus, Cranebeard found ways to relieve this anger in small acts of malice against his fellow townsfolk. He found a corner in the store where the security cameras couldn't see him, so he'd unscrew the caps on the sodas, spit into them, and seal them back up. If somebody bought a winning scratch-off, he'd tell him, nah, they did the math wrong, and pocket the ticket for himself. Most dastardly of all, he'd use the bathroom and not wash his hands. Why? Well, he was doing that before he moved back, and now he was doing it just to spite everyone in Hampa Valley that he came across. Well, not everyone. He would always treat the ladies, especially those with a certain girth to their Charlies, with the highest levels of chivalry and gentlemanly respect. Would you believe he went through all of his work shifts without grabbing a single butt? Wow, such restraint. It is true that whenever one of the locals came in for a bag of Lay's or a can of Sprite, Cranebeard would practically roll out the red carpet for them. He'd engage them in conversations, talking about those fine works of art he did while in college, or that one time that he totally defeated that stupid jock with facts and logic. Strangely, though, each woman he tried this with was more interested in simply purchasing their pack of bubblegum than in conversing with him. In fact, they always seemed to be in a hurry to get out of the store, leaving him alone, standing behind the counter. These nightly incursions were rare, all things considered. As mentioned before, he did work the night shift, which would leave hours in between each customer visit. There would even be occasional nights where he wouldn't see a single human soul until the crack of dawn. Those nights were the worst for Cranebeard because, while he didn't like to admit it, there was a haunting quality to the nights in Hampa Valley. He hated the idea of being scared by ghosts and ghouls. After all, he was a big-brain atheist who long detached himself from delusions of God and the afterlife. Why, he would boast this fact to anyone who asked, and anyone who didn't, for that matter. Logically, he should have nothing to fear, but that's the problem with fear. It's not really logical at all. It's an instinct, imbued into us since man first appeared onto this world, one whose black tendrils have hooked deep into all of our minds. Logic didn't remove the chill that one felt from the whistling of the trees during a windy night. Logic didn't banish the shadows that one saw in the corner of their eyes. Logic didn't whisk away the glowing eyes from a stray deer walking through the empty fields. From this, the mind can conjure all manner of ghouls and ghosts. It certainly didn't help that the station Cranebeard worked at was on the edge of town. Cranebeard never really got used to this part of town, or even this part of Wisconsin. The tamaracks, balsam firs, and spruces always formed a wall of blackness that surrounded him whenever traversing the winding roads. He'd even hear a loud motorcycle whizzing past him, making him wonder if that could be the headless rider of legend. Yet, all the same, Cranebeard traveled these lonely pathways, all the while keeping his eyes peeled for any potential dangers, supernatural or otherwise. These, however, were mere terrors of the night, figments of the imagination often banished without a second thought from the rays of the rising sun. Through it all, Cranebeard was able to survive each night, laughing off each shadow in the morning glow of the sun before bed. He may have even been able to manage through his tribulations well enough if there wasn't one specter that could not be so easily banished by the sun, an entity whose very existence filled Cranebeard's mind at all hours of the day, one whose very presence bewitched him more than any of the other witches across the county combined, a creature that he could only whisper under his breath at the mere thought of. A female. Katrina Anderson was her name, a simple yet beautiful country girl who had resided in Hampa Valley alongside Cranebeard, a woman with long golden hair gifted to her by Nordic settlers of old in this region, a face with not a single freckle or blackhead in sight, and a warm smile revealing her rosy red cheeks. Her body itself was something that would make Cranebeard drool over. Not too skinny, not too fat either.
Plump in all the right areas,
as you'd hear Cranebeard mumble to himself. Her fashion style was not too provocative, being your standard mix of contemporary and modern styles appropriate to rural folk, though she did typically wear a white t-shirt during work that, when wet, would make Cranebeard go nuts. However, there was one big feature that would make Cranebeard decide on her and her alone as his conquest, and that feature would be her big, fat inheritance. You see, Katrina was not just smoking hot, but she was also part of a rather prominent family in Hampa Valley, a family that conveniently for Cranebeard had Katrina as an only child, leaving no pesky siblings to compete for the family property. Oh, and what a property it was. There were many mornings where Cranebeard would follow the young Katrina back to her family farm. It was owned by several generations of Andersons, who all combined their efforts to make the Anderson farm as large as it was. Their land was placed in the most idyllic part of Hampa Valley, a large piece of relatively flat land nestled in between the more rugged parts of northern Wisconsin. On that land were miles upon miles of golden hay fields, with round, ripe bales ready for the harvest. Beside the fields were long metallic cowsheds, filled with Holsteins of varying maturity and sizes. Directly across from those was a cow dairy that worked around the clock, with farmhands constantly pumping out truckload upon truckload of fresh milk. In front of the dairy was a large barn, encasing a wide variety of the latest and greatest models of agricultural technology, from balers to tractors to trailers to plows, from seeders, sprayers, spreaders, UTVs, all of it. Very high quality, very high performance. It was no secret that the Anderson dairy made the family the richest in town, and they had the house to show it. The property was massive and had a few expensive-looking trucks parked out front. One day, Cranebeard decided to ask the fair Katrina for a drink of water, as he had been, exercising and needed to fill up his water bottle. When he got a look inside the Anderson house, he was amazed. The property itself was a rustic-style house that was practically a mansion. There were many bedrooms that served as guest rooms for any weary travelers to the homestead. There, nearly as many bathrooms as bedrooms, and wide-open common rooms all across the house, and of course all ornately decorated with country-style decor. Oh, how Cranebeard's head spun with the wide variety of plans that he had for this property. He saw each delivery of milk off the property as large silos of gold. His mind thought of all the cattle as walking, mooing dollar signs. He wasn't a fan of the trucks, seeing them as gas guzzlers, but some country bumpkin would probably happily buy them for $40,000 a pop, money which he could use to buy a Tesla Cybertruck.
Holy shit! Is that a shitbox?
The house itself could even be used to rent out rooms for tenants to gain some extra income, on top of the massive amounts of money provided by the dairy farm. It was the perfect plan, Cranebeard thought. There wasn't a compatibility issue between the future lovers. I mean, the two had so much in common. Katrina was polite, Cranebeard was a gentle sir, she had big boobs, he also had big boobs.
I'm dead sexy. Look at my sexy body. Oh, yeah.
Katrina had lots of money. Cranebeard wanted lots of money. Katrina even said between friends that she plans to save herself for marriage, and Cranebeard was obviously a virgin himself. The only issue was her years of redneck brainwashing, according to Cranebeard, but that was okay. He would have her read some constant Richard Dawkins to undo the brainwashing once they were officially together. No, for Cranebeard, they were practically made by evolution to be together forever. They were destined to produce superior human offspring that would dominate the low-level rednecks of this town. All he'd have to do is work his natural alpha male energy, and she would be putty in his hands. There was one problem that did threaten this scheme of his, however. That problem being the other men that were also after Katrina. Katrina was highly sought after, having at least 20 different men that all wanted their chance with the fair maiden. As a result, Cranebeard had a lot of competition. A bunch of slow-minded, unrefined troglodytes that were no match to Cranebeard, at least as he would tell you. I mean, all of them probably thought that the high art of anime was nothing more than Chinese cartoons. He could see each of them writing love notes and sending flowers to the Greek goddess that was Katrina. Routinely, he would pass by her house, making sure that none of them dared to touch his future wife. He'd even hide in the bushes for the mailman in the morning, grab all the letters sent by her admirers, and promptly burn them. He'd even piss on the ashes as a means of marking his territory, like the strong alpha he was. For a time, this ensured a monopoly of Katrina's attention, as he would send 5 letters a day himself, filled with the most majestic wordsmithing a man can offer.
I fancy your smile, your face so beautiful, your mind so bright. I think about us together every day and night. I fantasize about each moment, our souls binded together in bliss. I see those soft lips, thinking about giving you a kiss. There's so much I can say about you, so much that hasn't been said, but actions speak louder than words. So let me demonstrate my love for you in bed.
How about no, you crazy Dutch bastard?
Signed, Cranebeard. For Cranebeard, everything was in place. True, a woman like Katrina wasn't responding to any of his advances, but they say women like a chase. It would only be a matter of time until Katrina came to her senses and married the nirvana that was he. At least that was what Cranebeard thought, until Katrina was to encounter a single man, a milk truck driver by the name of Abram von Brunt. If there was ever such a mirror universe of our polar opposites, Abram would be the mirror world version of Cranebeard. Abram was a full-blown redneck. He would dress in a pair of black combat boots, blue jeans, red plaid shirt, and it made him look kind of like Paul Bunyan. Abram even had the beard and muscular physique of Paul Bunyan, being a star quarterback in his high school days. In many ways, he ingratiated himself into the country lifestyle of Hampa Valley, still going out and shooting clay pigeons with his high school friends on the weekends. Cranebeard remembered the day that Katrina had first laid eyes on Abram. It was a day that gave Cranebeard nightmares for weeks. He had every moment of them together seared into his brain. How he walked toward the fair maiden without a stutter or nervousness in his eyes. How he dared to converse with her about the firearms that he'd used in target practice and the Harley Davidson he'd been working on in his garage. He was a simpleton, Cranebeard would say, a Neanderthal, a worthless jock who had meandered his way into the territories of every alpha male to steal their beloved milady. He would never say these things to Abram himself, though. Less intelligent subhuman scum tend to use violence against their superior male opponents, as Cranebeard would claim, and Cranebeard was a pacifist. He was against fighting, mostly because he bruised like a ripe tomato, but still, he would not lower himself to Abram's level. Thus, it was better to let him think that he had a chance with Katrina. All the sweeter to sweep Cranebeard's betrothed away from that slimy Chad. And Cranebeard was a genius when it came to making sure the two stayed apart. One time, he heard them talking about a potential meetup at the local bar in town while, exercising around Katrina's property. He'd follow close behind Abram's truck, and he made sure to give it a liberal amount of holes in the front and rear tires of his pickup. One time he followed Abram home one night and made sure to accidentally knock Abram's Harley on its side when he left the garage door open. He'd even scratched "racist inbred monkey" on the side of his truck one time. That didn't mean that Abram was going to stop his pursuit of the fair Katrina. Worse yet, when Katrina's dad heard about the bad luck that Abram was having, he was more than willing to pay for all of the damages incurred. None of them knew for sure that Cranebeard was the one involved, but Abram definitely gave Cranebeard a dirty look anytime he was spotted skulking about the Anderson property. Weeks passed, with Cranebeard trying to court the fair Katrina. Each compliment, each love letter, each night of him staring at Katrina through a window, all of these coalesced into making the one-sided love only grow stronger and stronger. Cranebeard, however, wasn't interested in keeping it one-sided for long, for Cranebeard knew that he would have to make a bold statement, a grand gesture of his undying love for his princess in the castle, and such an opportunity did come. Halloween night on the Anderson property, the biggest party in the entire community of Hampa Valley. It was a yearly celebration that the Andersons would throw on their farm. A social gathering filled with food, drink, dance, and of course, it would be the perfect place for Cranebeard to confess his undying love. Unfortunately, Cranebeard had received no invite to the party, but that's okay. He figured it got lost in the mail somehow. There would be lots of people there, so he could just slide his way through the crowds and make his way to Katrina for this night. When that Halloween afternoon came, Cranebeard began dressing up for the occasion. He decided that if he was to impress the lovely maiden of the Anderson property, he had to look his best. He first made sure to trim his scraggly beard and then dumped a gallon of Axe body spray to help activate that female biology. He placed himself into a black tuxedo and shoes that were a bit snug on his rotund body. Finally, he had to pick a hat for the event. You would assume that a neckbeard like Cranebeard might wear a fedora, right? Wrong.
Fedoras are for losers,
Cranebeard would say.
Fedoras are for posers who thought of themselves as the next Zac Efron.
No, Cranebeard was a dapper gentleman who would only wear the most dapper of accessories. He would wear a black London top hat, an accessory that harkened back to the bygone era of the Victorian age, a time of men and masculinity, a time of decency and elegance, most of all, a time of tradwives that made Cranebeard almost cream himself at the thought. But what would a gentle sir be without a magnificent steed? Now, it was well established that Cranebeard is not one of the hoity-toity bourgeois fart sniffers that you see in coffee shops and four-star restaurants. Well, I mean, he was all of those things, except, he only had a few dollars to his name. He couldn't afford a car like everyone else. He had a red Yamaha scooter that looked, and was, way older than Cranebeard himself. A small vehicle that at best could reach speeds of about 40 miles per hour. Still, the vehicle was his mode of transit, and it at least consumed less gas than those oil hogs that most rednecks drive. Cranebeard did think that he should park a ways from the Anderson property. He wouldn't want Katrina to see him on this old fossil of a motor vehicle. Thus, he got onto the scooter, started the sputtering engine up, and drove off to Katrina's, the October wind whipping the flaps of his tux in the most comical of fashions. Once he arrived at the property, he could already see that the party was in full swing. He could hear the country singles that were practically a soundtrack to rural Wisconsin life at this point. He could see guests all over the party, all with bottles of Leinenkugels in their hands. He even saw a few kids and teens getting in on the festivities, participating in games like apple bobbing and cornhole tournaments. Once Cranebeard found his way into the garage, he could see a wide variety of fall foods. Pulled pork, brats, hot dogs in slow cookers. There were big pots of baked beans, wild rice, coleslaw, fruit salad, as well as rows of open chip bags. But it wouldn't be a Halloween party without sweets, of course, and the Andersons did not disappoint. There were several kinds of pies on the table, with bowls of candies for the kids. On one side of the wall was your typical line of party coolers, filled to the brim with soda, water, beer. The sight of it all was quite overwhelming for Cranebeard. He was going to go talk to Katrina, but he figured that all that could wait until after a paper plate full of food. Or two. Or three. After finishing his meal, Cranebeard then began his search for Katrina. He looked all over the property for her, but she had perfectly melded into the crowd. Eventually he found Katrina outside in the backyard of the property, sitting in a chair near a bonfire with some other guests. Unfortunately, near the bonfire was also Abram and his friends, who were exchanging stories from their high school days. This made Cranebeard nervous. He cared very deeply for the fair Katrina and wanted to save her from those mighty brutes, but there were so many of them. He would tell you that confronting those jocks would only put him and Katrina in harm's way. He would tell you that he had to think of something smarter to rescue the fair Katrina, and so he hid himself amongst the crowd, out of sight from Abram, but close enough to Katrina that he could sweep her away from him at the first chance he got. Hours passed, with Cranebeard watching Abram and, more importantly, Katrina like a hawk. His fists clenched at the conversations they were having together. Abram telling Katrina some white trash story about him and his friends, while Katrina was obviously just laughing along out of sympathy. The sun dipping behind the horizon and the stars coming out, the oldest and the most special of Halloween traditions commenced, the telling of stories beside the fire pit. Many of the guests came forward to add their folklore to the smoldering teepee of sticks and logs before them. One told of his time in sugar camp, how he saw the legendary Molly's Rock with the ominous message of "Keep off Molly's Rock" painted in blood red. How he and his friends dared the ghost of Molly by sitting atop the rock, only to be violently pushed off of it by the vengeful spirit. Another came forward with his time ice fishing with a couple of friends, only to hear the most ungodly screams in the nearby forest one winter's night. He'd even claim that he saw the glowing eyes of the beast that made that scream, a lanky, disheveled creature whose features can be described as only vaguely human. But the one that put the whole party on edge was the recollection of the headless rider, the town's chief spirit. A few even started talking about how they'd seen the entity driving full speed, trying to run them off the road in their cars. Abram, on the other hand, was rather boastful, telling about the time he saw the headless driver while Abram was riding his own Harley, and he would tell you about the time that he looked at the black and bloodied corpse right on. He'd hoot and yell at the apparition, bragging that he could beat that headless bastard in a race. Abram would then rev up his engine, boasting that the loser would have to give the winner a case of spotted cow. And so the two dashed at full speed, the wind whipping by them, as Abram arrived at the hill on which the headless rider had perished. He then claimed to have parked his bike on the hill, near the guardrails that the rider had hit. He ran down the hill, looked the spirit dead in his non-existent eye, flipped the double bird at him, and pulled down his pants, mooning the spirit. He did this because he knew full well that the spirit wouldn't dare travel to the site of his untimely demise. The spirit vanished like a puff of smoke, cursing Abram. All the while, Abram was still screaming about how the apparition still owes him a 12-pack of spotted cow. In between the stories, Cranebeard felt a grumbling in his stomach and retreated to the bathroom. He figured that he was in no way able to rescue the fair Katrina with a turtle's head poking out, so he went to the bathroom to take a poo. There he noticed the regular luxuries that the Anderson family had in their homestead, but he also saw something else, a laundry basket with a pair of pink undies, Katrina's undies. For you see, in all the nights Cranebeard had watched over Katrina, for her protection of course, he'd sometimes see her in her undies and bra, and he recognized those all too much. Cranebeard always held himself in high regard, but he'd figure that he and Katrina were going to get married anyway, so what was the harm in sampling the goods? Cranebeard then decided to do something that he would never admit to Katrina, or anyone else on the planet for that matter. He grabbed those undies and gave them a good deep sniff.
Oh, God. Oh.
Or rather, huffing the stink fumes emanating from them. Had Cranebeard had it his way, nobody would ever know about what he had done, but somebody came in without knocking, thinking that the bathroom was unoccupied. When that person came in and saw Cranebeard's nose half deep in Katrina's unmentionables, the commotion that the event caused was intense, which only got worse when Katrina heard what had happened. Katrina then broke down, her face red, tears streaming down her face, screaming to anyone and everyone about what a creepy bastard Cranebeard was, how uncomfortable she made him, how she hated every predatory advance that Cranebeard made towards her. Cranebeard did everything he could to resolve the situation, gaslighting, downplaying, making excuses.
That don't work. There's no way out of this one. You're done.
Though you could barely process what he was saying with the rapid-fire method of talking that he was using. He then tried to come to give Katrina a hug to make everything better. Katrina, on the other hand, began to scream when Cranebeard tried to approach her. Abram was watching the whole thing, giving disapproving looks, and when Cranebeard tried to hug Katrina, he hit his right fist against his left palm, letting Cranebeard know that he was dead meat. Cranebeard then began running through the partygoers, using every opportunity he could to gain distance from the angry country boy he'd just pissed off. He managed to escape to the edge of the forest, hiding behind a log, waiting for the partygoers to disperse and stop trying to search for him. Once Abram and his friends had seemingly given up, Cranebeard made his way to his ride. It didn't appear damaged by anyone, but given the fact that the thing was so old, well, it was kind of hard to tell. So he checked his surroundings and got on the bike. Once the fear inside of him died down, the anger began to swell. He cursed the Anderson family, claiming that this property was supposed to be his. How angry he was that Katrina had spurred him, the gentle sir that was nothing but nice, and she threw his love back in his face. He also hated the fact that the opportunity to inherit the Anderson farm had just gone up in smoke. All his time here, and he had faced nothing but disrespect from the hicks that populated this god-awful town. Had he inherited the farm, maybe then the townsfolk would cower at his feet. Oh, how they would bow to him as their new lord and master of this land, but his dreams of getting that opportunity were now gone. He cursed his bad luck. He cursed Abram. He cursed the entire town of Hampa Valley. He pretty much cursed everyone except himself, because of course everyone else was the problem. Not him. Couldn't be. Once his anger was released, he started the engine to his motorcycle and made his way home. It was a lonely drive for Cranebeard on the roads that night. Darkness hung over Cranebeard's head as the trees and clouds obscured any stars that might be shining over him. For Cranebeard, there was only one light that cut through the darkness, that being the one which was emanating from his bike, of course. It was a peculiarly quiet night for him. Typically, you'd find at least one or two cars making their way down roads like these, but not a single soul made its way along the lonely roads tonight. It was nothing but Cranebeard, the road, and the birch trees that uncomfortably resembled bony hands ready to clamp down onto him. He made his way to a three-way intersection in the road, which was odd. It wasn't the right route for him. He'd never seen this route before. He had made this journey multiple times on these backcountry roads. Had he made a wrong turn somewhere? He should have reached a four-way intersection that would take him back to his place. He looked at the sign in the middle of the road. Canterbury Road, it said. One of the roads that the headless rider was supposed to ride on. Or was it Timberlane Road? Maybe Stevens Road? The stories could never agree on a common haunt. Only that the rider was anchored in Hampa Valley. Logically, that just meant the entire story was hogwash, right? Cranebeard simply made a right turn at the intersection, figuring he'd make his way onto the more commonly used roadways. The roadway meandered as Cranebeard made his way back to his place, the pathway seemingly becoming more and more hilly as he traveled along it. Now he was in even more unfamiliar territory for him. He'd rarely travel along paths like this, and the darkness further obscured his location, at least at first. As Cranebeard began to travel down one of the crests, he saw an intense bright light behind him, a light that flooded the forest in a sea of pure white. He looked over his shoulder, wondering what the source of it might be, and he heard a motor emanating from the strange light source, an engine that one might hear coming from a motorcycle. He couldn't see much beyond the light, but Cranebeard figured that it was just another motorcyclist. He kept making his way along the rambling pathways before him, the motorcyclist always following close behind. A little too close, in fact. If Cranebeard sped up, the motorcyclist would follow suit, and if Cranebeard slowed down, so too did his traveling companion. It was odd for Cranebeard, a little unnerving, perhaps. No matter what, the motorcyclist would always maintain about a car length away from Cranebeard. Cranebeard was a little confused and a little weirded out. Why was this man following him? Was he following him at all? Cranebeard decided that he had had enough, and he pulled over to let the motorcyclist pass, so Cranebeard pulled over to the shoulder of the road to let the mystery rider zip by him, except the rider didn't. The moment Cranebeard pulled over, so did the rider, pulling up to be parallel with him. Now Cranebeard was scared. He tried to call out to the man, his voice filled with nervousness that he tried in vain to suppress. The man was silent, however, his form obscured by the intensely bright light. Cranebeard called to the man again, his voice now filled with annoyance.
He angrily called out to the man, asking him what right did he have to follow him? What right did this hooligan have to stalk him? What right did this redneck have to make him feel uncomfortable on these country roads? There was nothing. No remark, no taunt, nothing. The rider was silent. Cranebeard got off his scooter to give this man a piece of his mind. How dare he scare him like this, except Cranebeard noticed something. The motorcycle the man was riding was a Harley Davidson, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what he saw in the man's lap through the bright light. On the motorcycle, with the man, was a large, round object that, upon closer inspection, resembled a severed head. Cranebeard screamed. He dashed to his scooter and drove off. Off in the distance, he could hear the headless rider revving his engine. Not moving, just following. Just revving his engine as if to taunt his prey. As the road curved away from the rider, Cranebeard thought he managed to escape, only to see the rider gaining on him from behind. It didn't matter how fast Cranebeard went. The distance between the two was closing. 4 car lengths. 3 car lengths. With each curve of the road, Cranebeard gained a little bit of distance on the rider. 2 car lengths. 1 car length. He could feel the eyes of the severed head boring holes in the back of his skull. Eventually, Cranebeard saw the tallest hills in all of Hampa Valley, the very same hills of legend where the rider was said to have perished. This was Cranebeard's chance, he thought. He thought about Abram's story and how he had escaped from the headless rider. Cranebeard didn't know if the legend was true, but he needed something, anything to keep this abomination away from him. So his scooter began to travel around the winding path down to the base of the legendary hills, the pursuer in close proximity. Cranebeard then felt the worst possible thing happening from underneath him. He heard loud sputtering from his scooter. Now Cranebeard's fear reached levels that he never thought possible. He couldn't let this happen. He just needed to reach the summit. Soon, Cranebeard was making his ascent. The motorcyclist making his way close behind, of course. Another curve in the pathway gave Cranebeard some distance, but at this point, his scooter had just taken its last breaths of life. The scooter died right there on the side of the road, but Cranebeard did not care. He got off the vehicle and made a run for it past the guardrail. He could feel the light shine down onto his body as he made his way down the hill. Believing he had made it, Cranebeard decided to look up at the apparition, only for it to then grab its head and fling it down onto Cranebeard's body. Cranebeard's mother never heard from her son that night. Cranebeard's boss at the convenience store never saw him coming to work the following day. Soon, townsfolk became curious about where Cranebeard might have disappeared to. They began looking in his room for any clues about his whereabouts. There were piss jugs on the floor, of course, snack wrappers all over his computer, empty soda cans strewn all over the place. Yet there was not a single piece of evidence of them being touched by anyone. Ooh, haunted ho-hos. A posse was gathered, one of the farmers volunteering his dogs to help search for the missing Neckbeard. Though Cranebeard was an unpopular man in town, there were a few that were worried that something bad might have happened to him. The dogs found the scent of Axe body spray on Cranebeard's dead scooter. The scent followed down the side of the hill for a bit, finding on the ground a top hat and a smashed pumpkin. The search party continued to search, but the scent ran cold. The forest had no signs of what had happened to Cranebeard, and as such, the police were forced to close the case. Not much else was done after that. A short article, not even on the front page, was written in the local town paper, but there wasn't much coverage about it in the news. The story, like many other legends of Wisconsin, was quietly filed away into the local folklore. Although, on Halloween nights, there would be retellings of the goofy man by many locals around the campfire. Some had their own embellishments as time went on. Some claimed the man, after being rejected so brutally, had just fled town in shame. There were even a few who said they saw him working as a barista in Eau Claire, but they didn't know for certain. There were a few that claimed the man had simply gotten lost in the woods after Abram and his friends threatened to kick his ass.
There would even be a few places that would connect the disappearance of Cranebeard to the headless rider, saying that the rider now travels with Cranebeard's head in his lap as a trophy. The story itself has had many exaggerations over the years. After all, it's only natural that a legend goes through many adaptations as time passes, and indeed, time did pass. There were many Halloween nights when locals would tell tales such as this one. Many Halloween nights where Abram and his now wife Katrina would tell the legend to all their friends and families, although they did leave some of the more crunchy details of the legend out. Though you may ask me, if there are so many variations, then how is mine possibly the correct one? How would I know so many details of this tale? Well, let's just say that the writer and I have a more intimate relationship between us. You see, legends aren't always just tales told around a campfire. Sometimes the subjects of said ghost tales can be a bit more tangible than one might think, because even after all the exaggerations and cobwebs and dust, all legends tend to have a kernel of truth to them. But hey, what do I know really? After all, there's no such thing as ghosts, right? Pretty good little Halloween story. Nice remix of Ichabod Crane. I definitely appreciate it. Beautifully written as well. Definitely a good time. Will be had by all. I hope you're enjoying your Halloween, you know? We don't do Halloween none too much in the Philippines, but I want to go back to the States and make it happen next year. That's my goal. We're gonna put some money aside. We're gonna cook with gas. Definitely one of my favorite holidays and one of my favorite months, and I'm glad to spend it with you, friends. If you'd sign up on the Patreon, that would be so nice. If you'd sign up on YouTube memberships, that would be slightly less nice, but still super nice. Well, if you bought something on my fourth wall too, that would just be the bee's knees. I'd really like that a lot. Even if you can't do any of that, maybe share the video around. Who doesn't need a spooky story on Halloween, right? Whatever you decide to do with the rest of your day, night, whatever it is, I want you to know that I appreciate you. You are loved. You are worthy. You definitely deserve it. I shall see you in the next one. And until then, friends, bye-bye.